Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hey everybody, we're back for our exciting end of the year wrap-up. It's David, Mike, and Greg and the Near Memo, and we will be talking about a whole bunch of stuff kind of under three broad headings. There's tons and tons of things, obviously, that happened in 2024 in the world of search, SEO, local SEO, and we can't possibly capture all of those things here, but we decided we would each pick something that we thought was really significant that happened this year and kind of talk about it. And judging from the green room conversation, there's a lot of debate. So we'll see if that comes out when we're recording. First up will be Mike, who's going to broadly talk about the revelations around the Google algorithm that happened this year. There were a number of things and a lot of discussion about those. He'll be going into that. I'm going to talk about AI and ChatGPT and its impact on search and the market as a whole. And David's going to be going into some of the DMA stuff that we did, and also the broader topic of regulation and why Google needs to be, or why the market needs to be regulated. So Mike, on that note, we should kick it off.
Sure. So everybody's aware of the DOJ leak, and everybody's aware of the Google API leak that occurred over the last year and some. And out of that came our knowledge, increasing knowledge about how Google works, and the understanding that Google focuses on brand sort of as a effect of their technique called NavBoost, which the more people interact with something, the more Google shows it. It seems to emphasize brand, as AJ Cohn has always pointed out. And from that, we saw that they were tracking in Chrome, which we always suspected. We just never quite knew how. Duration of visits, how long did they spend on a given site, and that reinforced rank. And we learned that engagement is the biggest boost. We also, with a bunch of subsequent research, learned that sites that have a high percentage of brand query in relationship to keyword queries, sites that get a lot of more traffic from brand queries than keyword queries, tend to rank higher. And it's caused me to think a lot about knowledge graphs, local particularly, and how does NavBoost and brand relate to local. Clearly, we have long known in local that brand was important, that brand mentions, they used to be called web references. David renamed them citations. Web references were critical, which were basically non-linked brand mentions were critical. And then I was always curious about why did photographs, when you added them to a local listing, often, but not always, increase rank and throughput. It wasn't just conversions that were increased, but rank was increased. And I was not always, and I was curious about that. So where I've gotten to on this whole thing about, as it relates to local, is that they probably are applying some similar boost to a local graph based on similar brand signals and engagement signals, not just engagement with the website, but of a business and brand searches for that website, but subsequent engagement with reviews, engagement with photographs, engagement with driving directions. I once spoke about a driving direction patent from Google at Local U, I think it was 2014, 2015, where it was quite clear that Google was able to and found that driving directions were a better indication of prominence than reviews were. And it's very likely that those types of engagements with your local pack are a reflection of this sort of NavBoost strategy, which looks for engagement and thus bumps rank, which is difficult to game, but always possible. So anyways, those leaks have led me down that path of thinking. I have no idea. I haven't tested it, not sure where it leads me, but I think that engagement is critical. I think brand becomes the key factor. And I think traditional PR and traditional advertising driving this whole process to Google, where you then get reinforced at Google, including ads at Google, gets reinforced into a very positive feedback loop for success, particularly in local, but in everything.
Yeah, in the larger sort of world of SEO, which I'm the least qualified here to speak about among us.
Well, I'm an idiot savant of locals. I can't talk about it hardly at all.
You really want to be careful with that terminology, Mike. It might
Isn't that a standard scientific phrase?
Uh, I don't think so. But
yes,
anyway,
go look.
So
I'm a genius in a very narrow area. That's all it means.
A very stable genius in a very narrow area.
That's right. That's right.
Or an unstable genius in a narrow area.
Gilbert and Sullivan. You can turn that into modern major general. Anyway, a lot of the discussion in general SEO has been about the degree to which Google is using clicks or predictions of clicks, engagement as as a ranking signal, and that lots of searches, different numbers and different. Ahrefs has a study which said I think it was like 35% or 36%. Rand said it was like 44% in his data sampling. Regardless, people are looking for brands, and Google is showing them brands, and people are clicking on brands. And brand is loosely defined here, and so this is the feedback loop that you're talking about. And there aren't as many explicit brands. You could look at the prominence, proximity, and relevance, I guess, are the three for local, right? The three ranking factors that they identified. And prominence really is a collection of factors, which is sort of a bunch of brand signals, essentially, right? I mean, prominence is sort of a euphemism for brand awareness in a certain way.
As could engagement be part of that prominence?
Yeah, and engagement is a proxy for that to some degree. And the conclusion of, to your point about PR, the conclusion of most of these discussions, certainly, we had Morty Oberstein on, and he was talking about this, and Rand was talking about this. The conclusion is really you have to do whatever you can to build your brand, mostly off of Google, in order to rank on Google. That's the sort of simplistic advice. I mean, that doesn't say it all, and that's not obviously something that SEOs fully embrace, but that's sort of what.
I think the corollary to that is do the things at Google and on your website that increase engagement, right? So that when people do come to either your local graph, your local profile, or your website, they stay longer, right? Why? And we've seen this come up in research frequently, right? So real photos, both places, seems to lead to better outcomes. Why is that? Because of this whole cycle, right? So it's off Google, but it's maybe digital, or it may be part of the graph. Hard to say. All three things.
I just wanted to comment that it strikes me that the sort of brand layer is just another hurdle for Google to overcome with respect to keywords in business name spam that we see just continue to be rampant in Google business profiles. And it makes it, I would say, in addition to the sort of, first of all, you're starting with a much lower threshold for what is a popular brand if you're talking about a local search, right? You don't have 330 million people searching for a personal injury lawyer in San Francisco. You probably have 1 million, right? So it's a much smaller sample. And if you're trying to understand and kind of piece out what is the brand, well, if somebody says X law firm, San Francisco personal injury lawyer, what part of that is the sort of salient part of the brand? And so you probably also, in addition to getting the keyword boost from having that keyword in your business title, you're probably also getting the brand boost because Google is just not able to identify what's a brand versus what's a
right. And you can
SEO,
see this
a black hat SEO technique. So
it's not black hat anymore, and this is a conversation Greg and I had several weeks ago, where Google is apparently allowing some amount of descriptors in a business name and will not take action if it's lower than X number. We don't know what X number is. Well, at least we don't under disclosure opportunities, but there is a number at which Google is allowing these to exist, because I've reported numerous ones. And so Google is actually encouraging it, I would say.
this is another brand signal. I mean, and it would
Right.
be irrational. It would be, I mean, there's a difference probably between true keyword stuffing, sort of in the adjective ahead of the business name or very intrinsically tied up in the business name versus this kind of hyphen descriptor tagline. I mean, I think that I don't have any facts to base this on, but that's my sort of intuition based on what you're saying, Mike, is that if you really say best personal injury law firm San Francisco, that's your business name, that looks like spam versus David Mim, attorney at law, family law or whatever.
Blumenthal, Mim, and Sterling.
Yeah, the best web prognosticators Inc. or whatever. Anyway, I think this is sort of consistent with the whole brand discussion that we're talking about right now.
Right.
And Google is giving people information that they think they want to see, and they're validating that by clicking or engaging with it, and then that reinforces this feedback loop. And I think it was Tom Capper at Moz who was talking about what he thought the helpful content update was about, was kind of rectifying the distinction between brand awareness and ranking. And his point was that if you were ranking much better than what people how people were responding to you, i.e. sort of brand awareness or engagement, then you were punished, right? And if there was closer alignment between your domain authority and your whatever the behavioral signals, then they were going to let you go. That was his theory, which is again sort of consistent with this larger notion of brand and NavBoost and so on and so forth. Have we exhausted that topic?
I think it's over to you.
All right.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.